With that down, let's move on to our fourth main topic today. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by George Harris, who writes, Kathleen Kennedy was asked by the BBC ahead of the BAFTAs if the Star Wars movies will ever have a female director. She said that she would, and that they were already working with female directors like Deborah Chow on The Mandalorian and other Disney Plus Star Wars movies. John, do you think that there will be female directors for Star Wars movies? And do you think that Kathleen Kennedy will still be the head of Lucasfilm when a Star Wars movie with a female director debuts to the public? All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, inevitably, whenever Kathleen Kennedy does or say anything, it causes a bit of a stir. And particularly when it comes to women's involvement in Star Wars. Now, she was asked directly. It's important to keep this in mind. She didn't get up on a pulpit one day and call a press conference to announce to the world that I'm going to have female directors direct Star Wars. She was asked a question on the carpet of the BAFTAs. You know, are you going to have women directing Star Wars movies in any of the upcoming Star Wars movies? To which Kathleen Kennedy said the following. She says, we've already got them. We're doing Mandalorian. We've got 2 or 3 fantastic women working with Star Wars, and we just brought in Deborah Chow, who is doing the Obi-Wan series. Will they direct movies? Oh, absolutely, without question. Will we see female directors directing upcoming Star Wars movies? To which she answers, oh, absolutely, without question. Predictably, and like clockwork, one of the big responses we've seen to her statement in this, because we all know, we as film fans, and let's face it, we're all guilty of this. This isn't just one group of people. We're all guilty of this. We take one statement made by a filmmaker and we attach an entire dogma around it and we jump all over it. So it's not surprising that as soon as she said this, we started to see on Twitter and other places, she's got an anti-men, all-female agenda. If she's only going to look at female directors, she wants to wipe out men off the planet and blah, 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 blah. That was inevitable. We also saw some very level-headed commentary about it. We saw some very level-headed commentary about it from some people, too, who was wondering about, you know, the veracity of her statement and what she's saying. But there's something I want to point out here. You know, just to anybody out there that is yelling and screaming bloody murder, that this is all a part of Kathleen Kennedy's anti-men, just nothing but pro-women, just wants to wipe men off the face of the earth sort of thing. There is a little statistic I think we need to keep in mind. That little statistic is this. To date, unless I'm missing one, and I might be, there have been 12 Star Wars feature films. Every single one has been directed by a man, including the 5 Star Wars feature films that have been done under the watch of Kathleen Kennedy. I want to mention that again. Every single Star Wars movie that Kathleen Kennedy has overseen, 5 of them, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker, Rogue One, Solo: A Star Wars Story, every single one of them, she's picked a man to direct them. She's picked 10 male directors, if you want to count all the ones she hired and then later fired, before bringing in other male directors. I only throw that out as a little fact to keep in mind before the hysteria of Kathleen Kennedy hates men, hates male directors, only has a pure female agenda. 12 Star Wars movies, every single one of them directed by men, including the 5 films that she has headed, including all the directors that were on those films and later fired. Every single one of them was a man. Any statement that Kathleen Kennedy has some anti-man agenda is completely squashed by this simple fact. It's just simply fact. So, this brings a new objection that people have. The objection that then some people have, Rob, is, well, she shouldn't be, excluding looking at men. She shouldn't just be looking at women and saying the only people who can direct the next one are women. Time out for a second. Just calm down and keep something in mind. She never said we will never have a man direct a Star Wars film again. There are some people I'm seeing online reacting like that's what she said. Like she just said we will never have a man direct a Star Wars film ever again. That is not what she said. She has simply said and made the statement that we are absolutely going to have women direct a future film. To which some people I've seen online say, well, why not just get the best person for the job? Okay, fair enough. But she never once said that she wasn't going to get the best person for the job. Look, Rob, the way I see it, it comes down to something like this. We often talk about why I don't discuss X actor in X role, because I think for any role, there's probably about 20 or 30 really great performers who could play that role, and any of them would be great for it. So just pick one of those 20 to 30, get somebody who's great for it. I'm sure it's really, really close between them. So as long as you pick any one of those, I'm going to be good with it as long as you get somebody who's really good and really talented. I feel the same way about directors. There's no one director and only one director who could possibly direct a movie. There's probably a good pool of directors that it's really tight and really close, and they can pick one of those directors as long as they pick from this right group of directors, this really good, talented, qualified group, and ignore all the other ones, and you pick any from that group, I think you're good. The problem has been, over the course of 12 Star Wars films, there are women in that group. They've just never been picked. They've just never been picked. And Star Wars, you know, I have my criticisms of Kathleen Kennedy and the way I believe she's managed this thing, and those criticisms are well documented. One of the things that I think she has instituted that has been a good thing has been kind of creating their own farm system like a sports team and developing their own in-house talent.
Yeah.
You know, that was one of the reasons I was excited that Dave Filoni was going to be directing live action episodes of The Mandalorian development. That's why I was so excited that we've seen somebody like a Bryce Dallas Howard come in, or a Deborah Chow, who is already well established. So that's a little bit besides the point. But they're developing their own in-house talent. You see, to me, this statement is not a statement of, I'm done looking at men. That's not the statement. The statement is, we've got a lot of really good female directors, and it's time that we stop excluding them from getting opportunities. We've given tons of opportunities over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. As a matter of fact, it's 12-0. We've given tons of opportunities. It's time that out of this group of directors, of which there are males and females, it's time for us to stop excluding the female directors from getting a shot at directing one of the bigger projects. Especially when you've got some experienced and talented female directors in there, it's time to let one of them have a shot at one of the Star Wars movies. So I don't interpret anything of what Kathleen Kennedy said as I'm excluding men. I haven't interpreted anything from what Kathleen Kennedy said, I'm going to put a woman director in here regardless of if she's a good director or not. That's not what she said. There are people out there trying to make it sound like that's what she said, but that's not what she said. She simply said, we work with a lot of female directors. We have a pool of good, talented female directors. You're absolutely going to see one get a shot to direct a Star Wars movie moving forward. And there is nothing wrong with that. I see nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And it's time to start giving some opportunities to somebody else. Anyway, Rob, you saw this comment from her. You saw these statements from her. What was your initial reaction to them? And what do you think the ramifications are for what Kathleen Kennedy just said?
Well, look, I've been on record saying I'm a great admirer of Kathleen Kennedy and what she's accomplished over her career, which is amazing. I mean, any filmmaker, male or female, whoever you are, would love to have her credits. But, you know, I always ask myself, on the planet Earth, for the people who are qualified to direct a studio tentpole, how many of those are female and how many of them even want to direct a Star Wars movie? You know, maybe this whole idea that we should have women directors directing Star Wars films, I think the question we should be asking is, if women are qualified, if we have female directors that can direct studio tentpoles, would you want them to direct a Star Wars movie or something wildly original that brings a new voice to cinema? I mean, you know, it's such a strange thing. And like she pointed out, Bryce Dallas Howard is somebody that's beginning a directing career, and I thought it was really exciting that she was an approved director. There's 8 episodes of The Mandalorian. She was allowed to direct 1. Deborah Chow directed 2, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And that's 3 out of the 8 episodes we have basically with burgeoning new female talent, and Disney and Kathleen Kennedy and John Favreau thought enough of that talent to allow them to direct these episodes of The Mandalorian, which was hugely important to Disney, to Lucasfilm, to Disney Plus. So that is a huge vote of confidence. And I think anybody that is looking to see where female directors are going in the industry, the fact that those 2 hires were made on such a high profile show like The Mandalorian is really, really important. And I think when Kathleen Kennedy comes out and says, yes, we're directing female talent, or we're picking female directing talent, like you said, they're doing what they used to do in the old studio system, which is they're allowing female directors to come in, cut their teeth, show their chops, and they get promoted upward. It's actually a pretty interesting and I think pretty exciting way to do things. And if, as I suspect, I think you want to hear my theory about the Obi-Wan series that Deborah Chow is going to direct?
Oh, yes.
I think they're retooling it into a feature film. It began as a feature film. It was going to be a Star Wars story, Obi-Wan, a Star Wars story. They pulled the plug on that after Solo. I think they tried to develop it as an 8-episode or 10-episode or a 6-episode series, and they realized, you know what? Why don't we just go back to the way this was going to be, because it worked really well as a feature film? Why don't we go back and make it a feature film, and once the script is retooled back to the way it originally was, then we're going to announce it. Then Deborah Chow is going to be our first director, and they're going to come out with a new Star Wars movie that the development was done 3 years ago. That's why I think Ewan McGregor, at every chance he gets, is saying, nope, we're still making it, because he knows that they're going to announce it as a feature. The guy's a movie star. Everybody wants to see Star Wars continue. And I think of all the projects they have in development, I think Obi-Wan is probably a slam dunk. And that's what's going to happen. They're going to announce it as maybe not Kevin Feige's Star Wars movie, but I bet they could slide it right into that 2022 slot very comfortably. And it's going to wind up on Disney Plus anyway.
I'm going to tell you what. I wasn't going to say this because I don't really know that I believe the source myself. But after my big angry tirade about how they're letting things fall apart with Obi-Wan, I had somebody reach out to me, and the suggestion to me was that it's being retooled for a feature film.
Yep.
Now, there's a reason why I didn't make that a story on the John Campea Show, and I didn't make that a headline, because I'm not sure that I believe that. I'm not sure I believe that.
I have no.
But I think it's fascinating that you just brought that up, because that what you just said is actually something that was whispered to me. So, but I don't know that that's true. I'm not saying this true, but that's interesting that you thought of that.
I have no inside information, just because people say that, I did the story on the Duel of the Fates script, but I have no inside information about this. But to me, it makes perfect sense. They have a director that they're behind 100%, who already directed over 2 hours worth of Star Wars, and it was very well received. They have a film that had already been in active development, because as we know from the Duel of the Fates script, look at how much pre-production artwork was done. There were hundreds of pieces done. I'm sure there's hundreds, if not thousands, of pieces done for Obi-Wan. It was basically ready to go, and they're going back and they're thinking, and you know what? Kathleen Kennedy is going to make that announcement, and they're going, Obi-Wan's going to be a feature, and everyone's going to be like, oh, so maybe Kathleen Kennedy does know what she's doing. Deborah Chow's directing. Who would say no to that? And Ewan McGregor, whenever he talks about Obi-Wan, which I watched him talk about 2 nights ago on a talk show, he's got a big smile on his face. So
I'll tell you what, though. Here's still the problem I have. I have no issue with what Kathleen Kennedy said. I think what she said was perfectly good and made perfect sense.
Yep.
But here's my problem. It almost doesn't matter, because I have a 75% certainty that whoever Kathleen Kennedy hires to direct the next Star Wars movie is 7 months later going to depart the project over creative differences, because that's the track record. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if she hires a woman or a man to direct this next film, because whoever she picks ain't going to direct it anyway, because that's how Kathleen Kennedy rolls. She doesn't pick the right person to start with. She's not on the same page with them. And then 6 months to a year later, the dreaded creative differences came up and they have to depart. So it almost doesn't matter. But wouldn't it be great?
I don't know, man. I think they've already got a great track record with Deborah Chow. I mean, she's directed at least And I think what she's already on the same page. She proved herself as a team player. She got to come up under the tutelage or under the watchful eye of Jon Favreau, who I think is going to direct a Star Wars feature. We shall see, probably the Kevin Feige feature, whatever that's going to be. I think I think Star Wars is going to move into a very exciting, beginning with The Mandalorian. It's the end of one era with the Rise of Skywalker coming out, but The Mandalorian has ushered in the new era of Star Wars, and I think it's going to be very exciting indeed, because their trial by fire they've been through the crucible, and they're going to come out stronger and better on the other end. At least that's what I'd like to believe.
All right, guys. Well, listen, we made this question the topic of today's question of the day. And the question that we posed to you was a very simple one. And that question was this. Kathleen Kennedy has said that she will absolutely have a female director for an upcoming Star Wars film. Do you see that as a positive, negative, or neutral thing? We talked this and more. We put this up just before the show started. Right now, almost 3,000 of you guys have voted. 28.8% of you guys are saying it's a positive thing. 11.7% of you are saying it's a negative thing. 59.5% of you are saying, it's a neutral thing. It's cool if it's a woman. It's cool if it's a guy. I fall on it's a positive thing because, again, when I look at that statistic, Rob, that it's 12-0, including all the directors Kathleen Kennedy has had so far have all been male, I think it's time to make sure that, considering she has access to some very talented directors with vision that are female, it's time to give one of them a shot at this point. So I see it as a positive. At very worst, it's a neutral. But anyway, that's what it is right now. 28.8 are saying positive, 59.4 are saying neutral, and 11.7 are saying it's a negative thing. Question is, guys, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like it's a good thing? Do you also feel like me that even if she does get women to direct it, they're just going to lose the director anyway? I don't know. How are you feeling about it right now? Jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right.